Hello everybody, today I'm going to tell you how I managed to turn around a hostile environment into something I actually enjoyed. Now, everybody knows I've been modding for a long time, but when I joined the Oblivion community back in 2006, I was not aware of just how toxic that community was. I should have taken the hint when I wrote a review. First post I ever made on there was a review, and I got flamed to hell for writing it and sharing an opinion. That should have been a hint for me to just turn around and leave. But I was stupid and I stayed and I made all these mods. Then I made a mod. Same thing again. Hostility, toxic, hacking, illegal activities, all aimed at me. It should have been a hint to leave. I stayed. Right? Anyhow, it all started with people asking questions on the forum, which was fine because I wanted to help people and I was setting myself up to fail at that point. They'd ask a question, I'd answer that question. Somebody would come along and ask exactly the same question under the answer I'd just given. So, question asked, answer, same question asked, look up. Why don't you just tell me? Because the answer's right above your post. Just tell me what the answer is. It's above. You've just spent 4 posts arguing with me when the answers are above your original reply, and it just went out of thing because people wouldn't help themselves. They needed a personal reply from the mod maker, and nothing else would do. 1 million downloads later, I couldn't reply fast enough. It was a setup to fail scenario brought about by people refusing to help themselves and needing wet nursing by mod makers. And basically, they weren't reading docs, they weren't reading posts, they were doing nothing to help themselves. And I started getting rather arsey about this. I had a shoot first policy. When I see somebody doing it, I just humiliate them on the spot, right? Because quite frankly, I got sick of it. And I wanted them to just sod off. I mean, it's pretty square. You can say to somebody, can you please go away? They won't go away. You say, look, you're a fucking cunt. Bugger off. They will go away and they'll hate you and they'll never come back. That's just a human nature response. Is being rude makes people leave. And I was starting to head down that road, right? So I did create a rod for my own back there. But to be honest, I was absolutely sick of it by then. So I got around it eventually by thinking to myself, I've done everything I can. I've written guides, I've written docs, I've tried to reply to forum posts, and they're just not reading any of it. So I started making videos. I didn't even watch the videos. Right, so every effort I made to help these people failed. I set myself up to fail by doing it. So what I did is I started doing things in my mod where they would see it. And if they didn't do it properly, if they did ignore the messages like they have been on the forum, I'd turn off features. Features would just stop working. Anything too complicated like a quest, gone. They'd just be left with an eye candy mod. That's what I did. And I actually started to enjoy it. It turned this toxic thing around into something that was more fun for me because it was a bit of a narcissistic approach, I admit. But quite frankly, right, I'm making the mods and being stressed out by people that are using them because they're not reading the help available. That was how I managed to, save my sanity. One of the things I did was I made because the story goes like this. In one of my mods, I think it was the Elder Council mod, I had people trying to pick their way through a door that led to a Thieves Guild location because they wrongly assumed, and these are people that play the game, remember, so they should know the Thieves Guild locations at the other side of that door, right? It says they wrongly assumed I'd locked that door by mistake. When actually I hadn't touched that door at all. Bethesda was the last person to edit that door when they released the game. So they stepped through the door, triggered the quest location, the quest early, broke the Thieves Guild quest, blamed me, attacked me for breaking the Thieves Guild quest when actually I had nothing to do with what they'd just done. So I got sick of that. I got blamed for that quite a lot, right? Because I happened to have edited the White Girl Tower in the Imperial City, right? But I'd done it with care and consideration. So I didn't break anything. Most of my edits involved adding doors, to walls that didn't have doors, not editing the doors. So they were blaming the wrong person and getting quite hostile and aggressive about it when I was saying, not to do with me, that's entirely your fault. Because people don't like to be responsible for their own mistakes. They prefer to blame other people. I'd say it's human nature, right? And very few people accept responsibility for their mistakes. And in my experience, life lesson here for you folks, accepting responsibility for your own mistakes is a good thing. Because usually it's a case of, well, don't do it again then. And that's it, it's over. But when you lie about it, people get pissed off at you. And if you're working for companies like I do, they investigate further and then you get fired. Where if you just said, yes, sorry about that, mate, or sorry about that, boss, it's over and done with. The honesty comes across as a genuine mistake and you move on. Well, these people aren't that type of people. These two people break their own games and seek to blame somebody else. So they're exactly the kind of people that will get fired from a job for similar things. So anyhow, I decided the Lynch Club was a good way. Well, Lynch Club. I never named that. It was Roger named that, right? It says Mr. K, basically. It says I decided the 8 Lynch Club, was the 9 Lynch Club. One of them says was the way to do it. Now, I designed it as a lesson not to pick doors, and I made a doorway in Origin of the Mages Guild that led to a room. And the room was called Keep Out. And you move your mouse pointer over the door, it says Keep Out. And in that room, there was a table with a book on it and a bottle of beer. That beer weighed a ton. And the second you opened the book, it teleported onto you and the doorway behind disappeared and was replaced by a wall. So you couldn't pick your way back out of it. You were stuck in that room. Now that door was locked with a key. You couldn't get in without the key, so that means you had to pick or force your way into that room to get into it. Now, you get into the room, you open the door, the book, the thing teleports across to you. The book says, you really shouldn't be here, should you? You know, that kind of message, right? You know, just to make a point that you've just basically asked for what you're about to get. And then I think it's 8 and 9 level 50 lynches would appear around you and just murder you. And because you couldn't get out, you couldn't even move. By the time you figured out what was going on, you're dead. That was the idea. It would kill the player for picking his way through a door. It was a trap. But players like Mr. K, Roger, decided to turn that into a game and they were tooling up to go through it. But I did that to get over the frustration I was feeling by being accused of something that had nothing to do with me. That helps me deal with that kind of player. Because I built that around my mod to deal with that. And I ended up feeling quite good because there was something in my mod now that would express my opinion on this matter, and I found it absolutely hilarious. Roger also found it hilarious, and he's the one that started this 8 and 9 Lynch Club. People who wanted to tool up, go in there knowing it is a trap and try and beat it. Roger's a right twat for that. He's alright though. Anyhow, it says later on, same thing again, right, in Skyrim. Right, and I had to do the same tactic again. And this is what I did to turn all these players that wouldn't help themselves into something I could get a bit of a laugh out of. Instead of being frustrated, I got a bit of a laugh out of it. This is what I did. In my original Winterhold mod, I think it was the original one, it might have been Dark Lord, but I think it was the original one. It says there was a book, well, a quest line, and the quest line had dialogue at the bottom, right, and the voice, person talking, Now, the dialogue would say, ignore the white arrow. Do not follow the white arrow, right? It says, and I knew people would skip past it. I knew they would. So I had the dialogue tell them to go in that direction, and the white arrow tell them to go in that direction. Now, if they went that direction, everything went smoothly, the quest continued, the mod functioned properly. If you went in that direction, you eventually got to a book in a room, and when you opened it, it said, you really shouldn't be here, should you? You've ignored instructions. You're a special mage. And after that, the special mage joke starts triggering. And you'd see me use it multiple times in multiple mods since then, because it's a personal joke at the expense of players that don't read documentation, don't read quests, but like to complain when things don't go right because they fail to read instructions. So anyway, as soon as they opened that thing, all the quests would shut down except for some special made quests. And they'd end up with a situation where they couldn't do anything because they just literally weren't intelligent enough to handle the mod. So it became an eye candy mod for them because that was all they really deserved. Those that followed instructions got the full mod, right? Because I am actually smart enough to make that happen, and they aren't smart enough to play my mod. So I turned it into something they would understand, basically a simple mod for special mages. Anyhow, the joke was carried on when you come to a certain room where they have this light spell training. You know, where you go to the trainee and you got the teacher and you say, "Can I have a light spell?" He goes, "Yeah, try and practice this in that dark room there." And you go in and all you can hear coming from the room is, "Hello, can somebody turn the lights on, please? I appear to be lost. Ooh, it's dark in here, isn't it?" And then you get a bit of dialogue on the character, and he says, "Oh, these mages, they came here for light training, they just ran into the dark without actually getting a light spell." Like that. And he says, "And they've been trapped in there ever since." Says, "But it deserves them, right, because, they weren't following instructions." But anyway, it becomes a running joke for a few of my mods. Every time somebody fails to follow instructions in the mod, I might have a little line of dialogue where the mod knows they fail to follow instructions. And you go, "Oh, you're one of those special people, aren't you?" And that is how I managed to turn around a deeply frustrating and toxic topic into something I actually found funny and humorous today. Now, yes, it might be a bit narcissistic and dark and sarcastic in nature, but given the alternative, given the toxicity of people that don't help themselves and that demand you help them or blame you for things they've done, that was a pretty good ending, I think. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the story. And if you're a modder, think of ways where you can turn those toxic comments into something that's a bit of fun in your mod. Because I will tell you now, it does make modding better, especially if you're modding Bethesda's games. See you in the next one.